real love should not hurt if you're aligned, right? But sometimes tough love does hurt, but it's still real love, and it's going to hurt someone who's not like aligned or like walking their path or what have you. You know what I mean? Like, I know you've had to give me tough love before, and in the moment you're like, oh, that hurt, whatever. But it's like, actually, I needed to hear that message,
Right.
and it
And
needed to
vice
come from
versa, right? Like you've had to, be like, that's off chain. You need to reel that in. So, but that is love,
so,
though. It's a
yeah, it can
healthy
hurt,
form of love.
but it,
Is there such a thing as unhealthy love, or is it just not love?
yeah, see, it could hurt, but it's still supposed to build. Real love isn't destructive.
Okay. Okay, that's better said. Real love
Like
is
net,
destructive.
net, net, even if it hurts, real love shouldn't, at the end of the day, when you add everything up, it should be a net positive. It should not be destructive. Could take a while for it to get there. There are parents who have kids who have like serious drug addiction issues, and maybe they had to, hey, you came home, you threatened your sister with a gun or whatever, so we got to kick you out the house because we love you. But then net, hey, we were trying to get you in rehab, da da da, and then eventually that person recovers or whatever. That's going to hurt, but net, it builds. It doesn't destroy. What do you think about that?
I think that's a very solid perspective. So if it destroys at all, okay, then it's not love. What if it destroys a little and builds a little and destroys a little and builds a little? What if it's a combo?
Then it gets down to intentions, because some people also don't want to be loved the way you love them or whatever, or different love
Right,
languages and
different
shit
love
like
language.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, so it gets down to hey, that's not the way I want to be loved, right? So like Zara's love language is quality time and spending, and attention. If I went out and bought her some $10,000 Gucci bag to try to stunt or whatever and be like, this is me showing how much I love, it was like, that's not
her language.
what this person wanted, or you know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's not the way this person wanted to be loved.
Okay. So we're discussing the Sylvester Stallone documentary that was recently released on Netflix. And one of the things I observed about the documentary was his dynamic with his father, which was at the very least, and to be polite, because I guess it's still somebody's parent, was a difficult relationship. And one of the things that was noted in the documentary that his father did was he wrote a mimic script of the Rocky storyline and then tried to shop the script as original material to Sylvester Stallone's network. Does that man love his son? What say you? That was just one of many weird examples noted in the documentary that contributed to Sylvester Stallone's description of having a difficult relationship with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, who does that? I mean, who does that? You like Rocky is one of the most famous movies of all time, and you really wrote a movie called Pookie, the boxer, and tried to shop it? Like, are you
not
serious?
to me? That's an ego thing. That's got to be like, I think I can do just as well as my son, maybe taking credit for his success or whatever. Watch, I'm just going to do this. But then again, that's also hubris, because do you know how many people have walked around Hollywood shopping a Rocky clone script? There's at least 100 people doing that as we speak.
Right.
Talk about, can I send you my script? And it's a Rocky clone.
Correct.
Yeah, like every agency has at least a dozen Rocky clone scripts in a filing cabinet somewhere that is probably labeled Rocky clones.
Ridiculous. Just a complete ridiculous. The ridiculousness of it was funny until you continue through the documentary. And then he gives another example of inappropriate behavior by his father. And again, I'm using the word inappropriate to be polite because it's still the man's dad, where he had a polo course in, I believe, in England, where it was one of the most prestigious places to play polo in the world. And Sylvester Stallone was able to get access to it. He had horses and all this. And,
probably been playing polo there for 500 years.
5,000 years.
I think they probably invented it or
stole it from some native tribe.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They've been playing polo there since Braveheart. And the dad, right, when they were, stabbing people with sticks. That polo course has probably been there. And it gave an opportunity for him to display his very distinguished horse riding skills, by the way, Sylvester Stallone. And his dad was able to play. And during the course of the event, while playing the game, his dad intentionally knocked him off his horse. And it was a really bad fall. He could have killed him or left him a paraplegic. And the situation was so disturbing to Sylvester Stallone that he sold all his horses and, tapped out of the event, and that was it. And he closed down shop. And when I watched something like this, it brought the question to mind: would you say a man like that loves his son? Is that love? A person who's capable of doing that? Not obviously, we're all capable of doing shitty things to people we love, but I mean, when there's a pattern of behavior, and the pattern of behavior is egregious behavior, such as writing your son's successful story, shopping it to his friends, and acting like he's lucky you're in his life, or doing something of a physical act of violence, knocking him off his horse, and imagine the attendees that were there, right? So this incident happens in front of his people, if you will, because I'm sure nobody of poor means was at the event, right? So taking all of that into consideration, that his dad would still do that at a place like that in front of those people, what do you define that as? Is that a dad? Yeah, he loves him. He's just so damaged because of his own life and and the trauma and then this and that. He drank. Who knows, whatever. Or is this just a man who was not capable of loving his son?
I think definitely in that moment he didn't love his son, but as you point out, pattern of behavior. So if that's the only thing he ever did, then pattern of behavior, right? But as you also have pointed out, this guy has a pattern of behavior of destructive shit, going out of his way to try to embarrass his son, trying to one up his son. Like,
right.
You should be stoked that your son is Sylvester Stallone. Like, that's
right. I thought that was probably one of the ugliest things I had seen, and it cut me very deeply to the bone to think that, like, not only did you do it, you did it in front of almost a stadium of people. Like, you did it in a very public setting. So there's the combination of the act and public humiliation, shame.
Yeah, going out of your way to shame your kid for no reason. It's one thing if your kid's acting an asshole,
right,
and it can be brought down a peg.
So people like this, would you say that they love, they're capable of love, but they're just damaged, quote unquote? Or does this person not love his son?
I think based on the pattern of behavior, because this isn't the only thing that he's done, it's far from the only thing he's done, then no, I think he's definitely not demonstrating any kind of love for his son at this point. He maybe did love his son in the past and something fucked him up. So I think every human is born capable of love, and then things happen
that can make you stop loving.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So going back to the original question, there are parents or people, if you will, who can go against their biological nature and not love.
Yes. Because they're so fucked up. Be it because of themselves or just inability to handle challenges and negativity in their own life, lack of therapy, lack of taking care of their own mental health. But
would you define it as mental illness?
Ooh. If you get to that point, you're literally pushing back against your own biological nature. Is it a form of mental illness?
Right. If you can go against your body's nature to do what it's programmed to do, is that a mental illness? I mean, how are we even defining mental illness in this day and age? What does that even mean in the context of where we're at in society right now?
I think anyone who gets to that point probably would demonstrate symptoms that would lead to some kind of some diagnosis of some mental illness, likely possibly anxiety, possibly personality disorder as well, some kind of narcissism, possibly, and also some form of depression.
Why would you say depression? That's an interesting ingredient.
I think people cope with depression different ways, and if they don't cope with it correctly, it can kind of fester and to turn into its own form of an infection, which could get you to the point where you just
act out maliciously like a virus, but on the outside of the body.
Yeah.
Something to think about on this episode of Raw Food.